And that's it for the betting segment. We're going to move forward now to ENCE breaking the Astralis streak and taking them down in the grand final of Blast over there in Madrid. Now, first and foremost, for those of you not following, Astralis were on quite a big nuke streak. That was going to end eventually anyway. I think the overarching topics here that we need to cover are, do we see this as a decline for Astralis? Do we think that the negative press has had an impact on them, or do we think this is just a low period for them? Still the Astralis era. Still going to get back to business. They have to be beaten consistently before we can go against that too much.
I want
I
to
would,
say that
yeah.
Sponge missed out on the opportunity to clip his thing from the last episode where he said like Astralis are gonna lose. The negative press affected them, and then like took a pause and said like I don't really think it. I'm just saying it to say it. You missed on the opportunity.
He said they were going to go out in groups, though. I think I'm pretty sure he said something like that. So
unlucky.
I said that, who knows? It doesn't really matter. They still didn't win. I think that the negative effect of the press probably is eating them up a little bit. You can tell with some of the snippety kind of tweets that they send out there to the internet. Obviously, going from like the best team in the world and everybody talking positively. The only thing people were saying that was bad was that they played boring, to then being like having this whole bandwagon behind them.
They've been through some
The
of that
smoke
as well.
situation,
With the
yeah.
smoke situation, and there's been a lot of backlash towards Glaive, especially, or even Zipex around that. So I feel like I'm not sure. I don't think the bad press is affecting them. We've seen that happen before, and I think maybe not much worse. It's actually been kind of a little bit overblown with how people have been reacting to what Astralis have been doing in prioritizing. So yeah, it's been a little bit overblown, but at the same time, I felt the same way about the smoke thing, and that was a little bit more aggressive, I think, and they just flew past that without any issues. So you do have to look at more about their confidence just in game, not necessarily connected to anything external like this, and them maybe losing a little bit of the mojo because of how they've been organizing these breaks. So maybe we're just going to see like a bit of a different approach where they just like will try to get some more momentum, like another win at a big event, and then just get back on the horse. I don't think this is a massive issue for Astralis, but at the same time, like them losing a nuke streak that they've been on for some like a year, over a year I think even, and them losing a couple of tournaments in a row now. That's something that we wouldn't put next to Astralis like a couple of months ago. Like this would be unimaginable for them to lose like a nuke streak to even to a team that doesn't even play it as one of their main maps. It was something like fifth, maybe ENCE's fifth best map or something like that, somewhere along those lines. Like probably towards the bottom rather than towards the top. So that's a little bit of a worry. But yeah, I feel like it's just a confidence thing that they're gonna bounce back.
Thing is, I think the discussion here is we all know that on the top level, a lot of it comes down to the mental game. I mean, we've been talking about Liquid for the past year. Obviously, a good team, good players. They play the game in a good way, but they can't win. Like it's obvious, the mentality thing. And now we have Liquid literally going to IM Sydney, winning, which could not be an easier big title. Literally could not be easier. They get their first big win there, and then at the same time, Astralis are not there. They decide to skip it, fair. But then they go into Blast, and then they lose. They lose the nuke streak. They lose the final 2-0. 3 maps to ENCE, actually, in 3 different maps, because they lost on, I don't remember, I think
Dust
2 or
2.
something.
Dust 2 was the first one, yeah.
So now we see a lot of like negative stuff being talked about Astralis, and then they hit like this. It's not a bad streak, it's a bad tournament, but also the last tournament wasn't that great because they also didn't win. This is the first time they didn't win 2 in a row since Marseille, right? When they started winning tournaments. So they lost a lot of this untouchable kind of mojo around them. And that's something that I feel like other teams and players have been literally harming themselves by putting Astralis on this pedestal of being a perfect team, doing everything right. Now when that is out of the window, I'm not sure it's going to be that easy for Astralis to just come back into it and start winning again. Because if you lose that mental edge, the other teams will have to kind of punish you on that.
Yeah, I feel someone else needs to beat them in a final though, like a different team. So it's not just like they've lost to ENCE, and sure they lost a couple like best of ones to, the likes of MIBR and stuff in the
Yeah.
previous blast. They need to go into ECS or EPO and get beat down. Like maybe, struggle to get through semis or get to the grand final and lose to Liquid or lose to someone else. And then at that point it's like, yeah, it's over. That's them, they're done. Like, because even if they can come back and raise the bar again, this period of time has been quite lengthy without a trophy, right? So if they don't get one at Pro League or the ECS finals, which are both coming up very soon, that has to be it. Like, they could go on to win the next major. That's cool, but it's been a blip on the radar. This has been a bit we have to look at, and we have to take this chunk out. Well, we're not just going to forget this part of history, right? This has definitely happened and existed like this. Let's just see if they can kind of. I don't think it's over yet. I think it's too soon. But if they don't win the next bigger tournament, then that's where I think we start to look for trouble. But obviously, we need to reflect on the way that ENCE approached the game. Ariel had, the MVP level performance that he had. I think that everything was clicking for them to have two consistent days like that. We haven't seen that since their major run since then. That was kind of the same thing where everything was clicking, and they went into this match with Astralis with a lot more confidence than they had the first time. Remember the first time on that train game that they had in the major final? It just felt like they were scrimming, man. Like they were just doing whatever. They were just so loosey-goosey. Like it felt like they were fighting the pressure by playing with what felt like what seemed like no pressure. This time around, they felt like they were structured. They knew what they wanted to do. Everyone was on point. Everyone was clicking. It looked like a really solid unit.
I think the important part regarding the nuke upset, obviously them crushing the streak that ended, by the way, one map away from tying Lip's record from back in 2013. So that's obviously a big scalp, and I don't want to take anything away from it. But obviously, you have to consider this from Astralis' perspective and how much they actually probably weren't able to practice nuke for the past probably few months at least. And you could kind of see that in the game as well, not respecting certain angles with the AUG, which obviously didn't come in until like late 2018. And since then, they barely even play nuke. So that's the big part that I saw in the game specifically, and why ENCE were able to get such a big CT side, which was basically the biggest part of that entire upset, because they got something like, what was it, 11 rounds I think on the CT side, which nobody else got against them ever on nuke already. So that was already a hint there that ENCE would be the ones to break the streak. And yeah, obviously they had to do it on the T side as well and just get those 5 rounds. But I felt like they did most of the job on the CT side, where Astralis were just not respecting the correct angles with the AUG, especially outside, like towards aerial and garage and stuff like that. So definitely a little bit of a rough showing for them, but that's just because of a lack of practice, I would assume, at least.
Well, like one of the things we always going back to Astralis, though, just because I feel like that is where the discussion naturally flows. But what we said about Astralis in the past is like they win these rounds when they have disadvantages, when the map starts wrong. Like against this new game, ENCE was obviously, it was kind of an anti-strat early on. They were pushing a lot, like ramp, lobby, doing some aggressive plays, just catching the Astralis guys off guard. And then when they got the lead, then they started playing a bit more defaulty and just like holding the angles. Ariel was doing like sick work outside, as you said. But in the past, they would get over that. They would somehow magically end up with like the 6 rounds on the T side of nuke that they need to come back and stuff like that. But this is just one of the times that we didn't see that happen, which doesn't mean anything. They can still do it at the next tournament, but it's interesting to just notice that and see then how it develops further. Will they be able to kind of go back to the old Astralis where they just dig themselves out of the hole if it's needed? Or is this going to be kind of the downfall where you see them kind of struggling with that and needing to reinvent and do something new? I don't know.
All right, well, I think we're all pretty much on the same level there. There's only 2 other teams who went to this Blast tournament that are even worth gracing our lips, and that would be that of the Ninjas in Pajamas and Na'Vi. Obviously not making the grand final at a tournament like Blast, it's kind of like just whatever, right? So the grand final is what you all go to those ones for. And did Na'Vi feel a little bit flat to you guys? Obviously they got absolutely owned by ENCE on that Mirage game, if I believe.
Yeah, that was the opening game. Yeah. I mean, that was a part of it. We knew from the start there would probably be like the top 3 spots basically would be among ENCE Navi and Astralis, and we assumed ENCE and Navi would be the game that decided it, and basically it was. The problem for Navi was the opening game, and that's the hardest game that you're going to be in. And obviously, then they also threw it away against Astralis, where they had a pretty sizable lead. I think at least they were up like 13 something, 13-8, or am I just thinking about? No, yeah, they were 13-12 at one point, at least, and they were looking in the driving seat, and then Zeus made some questionable play. I remember that a couple of questionable plays, and that lost them the map basically on Dust 2. So yeah, they definitely threw away that win against the Straws that I think would have been enough for them to place in the final. I don't exactly remember the how that would have looked, but I think it would have been enough for them to make the final. So yeah, not great, but then again, yeah, opening game against ENCE was basically the one that decided it. So
it's just a classic, like they finished middle of the pack on a Blast event. They had 1 or 2 bad games, and that's it. You don't really bounce back from it. It's impossible. So especially
they
when
basically
you have
had
to play.
one bad game, and that's the opening game against ENCE. Like I said, like sure they should have won against the Straws probably.
But in the end, they lost to like ENCE and Astralis.
Yeah.
Were they shit? They weren't really great. They weren't. It's like whatever.
Well, no, they actually lost to an IP as well. I forgot about that. Well, they lost 3 games. True. Oh yeah. There was 2-3. That's why I was thinking about whether they made the final or not. They probably wouldn't have.
All in all, like I don't really make a lot of it. Just
that was the last game, though. Yeah, I remember now. That was the last game where Navi were already out of the final. So yeah, you have to question about how much they were in that game, in the last game against an IP that they lost pretty big as well, 16-9.
Yeah.
So
they were definitely trying against Astralis, though. So that's the one that
sure.
I would look at. And that was a 16-13. So I think, Navi, they're still just exactly where I expect them to be. NIP taking it to ENCE on Nuke, I guess that's a curious one. That shows you what kind of a coin toss we're dealing with there. But yeah, I don't know. There's not much to say
also almost beat ENCE on Overpass, which was interesting.
They almost beat Cloud. Well,
almost beat Cloud9.
Almost beat Cloud9. Destroyed an IP somehow. By the way, I don't understand how that happened.
Muterus.
He had a massive game, but still, that's just like that's the game that you should never lose for an IP. But that's just an IP. I feel like.
You know how Blast has that rule about quality of teams or something like that. It's like Cloud9 are really pushing that, really testing that rule if it's gonna be ever like used against them with the quality of games they've been putting up. Literally, barely beating Giants. I think it was 14-12 or something for Giants.
They probably should have lost. Cloud9 probably should have lost that game.
Probably should have lost, but they managed to beat them. So congrats.
All right, are we done with the Blast event?
We just get automatic out of this hellhole, by the way.
Oh yeah, there's one more thing about this event. One more thing about this event. I won the fantasy once again.
Oh yeah, mine was really rough.
Did I remind you of that?
Once
again. The pack. I think I was 3rd.
Nah.
I came 4th.
Let's not pull it. Let's pull it out.
It would be like the list of like titles for Daenerys. Like so many titles for Prof.
Yeah. Dennis gave me a bunch of points. Automatic did as well. So good job. Dennis bouncing back after the infamous interview with Striker where he said he doesn't know how to play the game. What a comeback.
I think he didn't have a great games outside of that one though.
He was okay overall, I think.
He was alright, yeah.
That one didn't go great, did it? Yeah, but Automatic obviously playing good. I think maybe grab some players from Ghost and build around a team around Tim. Give him a chance. But let's move forward.